The wind rolled down the valley in restless currents, carrying dust like smoke from some far-off fire. Evening pressed against the wooden facades of Dust Haven. The frontier town crouched on its last legs of daylight. From the ridge above, the land stretched out in brittle hues of ochre and bone, a country both unforgiving and strangely holy. Into this desolate hush walked two figures, a young woman and a girl. Their shadows joined as one upon the dirt street. The older, Mara Hollis, held herself upright with a dignity earned from hardship. Her dress was plain, mended more times than thread could rightly endure, and her face carried a beauty tempered by hunger. Her eyes searched the storefronts, wary and proud, measuring every door as though weighing the mercy behind it. At her side, clinging to her hand, skipped Junie, no more than 7, barefoot and freckled, hair tangled by the wind yet lit with some untamed brightness. Though her steps faltered on the gravel, she never loosened her grip. She spoke in whispers, her voice fragile yet urgent, as if each word might shatter if spoken too loud. The town noticed. Dust Haven always noticed. Men leaned against the posts outside the saloon, their laughter rolling like dice across the street. Women in bonnets drew their children close, murmuring sharp words meant to cut though framed as prayers. Hollis blood, someone muttered. No good ever came of it. The name clung to the sisters like burrs, impossible to shake. Across the street, beside the livery's gate, Gideon Blackthorne watched. He was a man shaped by solitude, shoulders broad from years of ranch work, though no herd remained under his care. His beard was kept short, his shirt sun-bleached and worn, and his eyes carried the kind of silence that made men lower their own. They called him Hollow Man, for he lived without wife or kin, speaking little, moving less, as though some vital part had been carved away. Yet when Junie's gaze lifted, her small hand shielding against the sun, she found his eyes at once. Something unspoken passed between them, need recognized by loneliness, ache meeting ache. Mara led Junie toward the saloon first, stepping beneath the porch where smoke and fiddle music leaked through the doors. She asked for work. Her words steadied though her fingers trembled. The barkeep laughed outright, eyes sliding over her form with the indifference of a man who measured worth by coin or pleasure alone. A thief's daughter has no place here, he said. The room behind him chuckled, boots scraping on the floorboards. Mara pulled Junie close and left, her spine rigid against the sting. At the general store, they fared no better. The keeper sneered at her request for credit, waving her away as though her very presence spoiled the air. The preacher, passing by, suggested in solemn tones that little Junie might be better off with proper guardians. Mara's face hardened, but her knuckles whitened around her sister's hand. Every door seemed nailed shut, every glance a reminder of their exile. It was then that Junie, in her child's bluntness, turned to Gideon. She tugged at the hem of his coat, her voice trembling yet clear enough to be heard by the cluster of townsfolk nearby. "My big sister is perfect for you," she said, her eyes wide as if offering the simplest truth. "Please protect us both." The words cut through the street like a shot. A ripple of laughter rose, cruel and unrestrained. Mara flushed scarlet, dragging Junie back, her eyes burning with humiliation. Gideon said nothing. He only looked at them, jaw tight, the silence stretching until it hurt. Then he turned away, and his retreat felt sharper than any insult. Mara's shame deepened. Junie's small hope wilted, and Dust Haven's gossip swelled like thunderclouds. Night fell heavy. The sisters found shelter in a half-collapsed shack beyond the edge of town. Rain came sudden and merciless, slashing through the roof, soaking their meager blankets. Mara wrapped herself around Junie, whispering promises she barely believed. That morning would bring something better, that she would never let her go. Lightning split the horizon, and the girl trembled against her. The door creaked. Gideon entered, shadow filling the frame. He carried dry wood under one arm, a folded blanket over the other. Without a word, he built a fire in the cracked hearth, the glow spilling warmth into the chill air. He set the blanket beside them, the wood stacked neatly. Then he left as quietly as he had come, rain swallowing his figure. Mara stared at the embers long after, pride warring with gratitude, while Junie pressed her cheek to the wool and whispered, "He heard me." Days followed with small mercies. A mended boot left at their door, stitches neat and sure. A parcel of food appearing without explanation. The fence outside the shack repaired enough to keep chickens safe, though no hand was ever caught in the act. Junie began to follow Gideon in her way, bringing him wildflowers, humming near him as he worked at the corral. He never smiled, not fully, but he accepted her offerings in silence. Mara noticed, though she never spoke of it, the thread between them, fragile as spider silk, grew with each unspoken kindness. Still, Dust Haven would not let them forget. The preacher's words turned sharper. Mothers warned children not to play near the outlaw's girls. At the store, when Mara asked again for credit, the keeper laughed and said her father had stolen enough from honest men. Gideon, standing behind, laid silver coins on the counter. The gesture burned worse than the insult, and Mara left with her head bowed. That night Junie looked up at him with solemn eyes and said, "You remind me of Pa before he drank too much." The words struck deep, pulling open scars Gideon thought buried with his family. He turned away, but her truth lingered like a wound that would not close. It was late afternoon when the past returned in flesh and menace. Riders approached, dust spiraling around them. At their head rode Silas Crow, lean and sharp-eyed, a man whose smile never reached his eyes. He dismounted in front of the shack, his boots crunching the dry earth. "Hollis girls," he drawled, "your daddy owed me plenty. Seems fitting you pay his debt." His men laughed, circling like wolves. Mara stood in the doorway, shielding Junie, though fear drained the color from her face. Townsfolk watched from a distance, too afraid to interfere, their silence as heavy as iron chains. Silas's gaze lingered cruelly on Mara. "You've your daddy's look about you," he said. "Reckon you'll serve fine in his stead." Junie, trembling, pressed against Gideon's coat. Her voice, small but steady, rose again. "Please protect us both." The plea, repeated like a prayer, tore through Gideon's silence. He stepped forward, shoulders squared, eyes fixed on Silas. The crowd hushed, sensing the shift. "They're under my protection now," he said, voice low but carrying like thunder. Silas laughed, cold and sharp. "The hollow man claiming strays? Let's see how hollow you truly are." The first blow landed sudden, a fist cracking across Gideon's jaw. The fight spilled into corral, mud churning beneath boots. Silas drew a pistol, the flash sparking against a storm-dark sky, but Gideon's hand was faster, wrenching aside. They grappled, each strike echoing to the gathered silence. Junie cried out, Mara clutching her back as though her grip could shield her from the world. For a moment it seemed Gideon would fall, pressed into the mud beneath Silas's weight. Mara's hand found a discarded rifle, fingers trembling, heart hammering. She raised it, unsure she could fire, yet unwilling to let the man who brought them small mercies be destroyed before her eyes. Gideon surged upward, blood running from his brow, strength summoned not from pride, but from a need to stand for those who had no one else. He struck, disarming Silas, forcing him back against the rail. The outlaw staggered, eyes wide with fury and disbelief. With one final heave, Gideon sent him sprawling into the dirt. His men, unnerved by the shift, scattered into the storm. Rain broke then, heavy and cleansing, washing blood and dust into rivulets that ran through the street. The town watched in silence, no laughter left, only the raw witness of transformation. Gideon stood, chest heaving, gaze turning not to them but to the sisters. Junie ran to him, pressing her small frame against his side. Mara followed, placing a hand upon his shoulder, gratitude and something more flickering in her eyes, though no word was spoken. In that storm-soaked moment, the world changed, not in the eyes of Dust Haven, though whispers would shift in time, but in the hearts of three souls who found each other against the cruelty of the frontier. And if you, listener, have ever felt cast aside, remember this. Salvation does not always roar with triumph. Sometimes it arrives in silence, in stitched leather and unspoken mercy, in the hand that stays when every other turns away. Family is not merely the blood we inherit, but the choice we make when someone whispers, "Please protect us both," and we decide to answer,